if you support us at a high enough level, we'll let you do whatever you want with your Wii Remote.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 362. We are still near the start of a brand new year. So my questions for you are, what is one new game and what is one retro game that you are most excited about playing this year? So new, a game that either came out last year or is coming out this year, and then a retro game. You know how we define retro around here, 15 years or older, that you are excited about playing this year.
I have so many, but I'll pick one for you. Deus Ex is a retro game. It's a PC game that I've had my eye on for a long time, and I plan to play it this year. I know there are sequels, so if the first one goes well, I'll probably just play all of them. So that's my retro answer. Modern answer, Hades 2 is way up there, but I also want to play God of War. I want to finish God of War and then play Ragnarok.
So I looked into it because we've had some of these discussions just off air. Hades 2 currently does not have a release date.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be wishful thinking that we'll get it this year, although it's Supergiant. They could do it.
It's Supergiant. The gameplay looked real similar to the first one. They could probably leverage existing code.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too surprised, but it also wouldn't surprise me at all if it's a 2024 release. And then Deus Ex, whatever. Why? How did that come around?
I saw someone streaming the first one like a month ago, and it looked like a game for me. It reminded me of Half-Life 1 and GoldenEye single player in some regard. It's just kind of like spy-ish, and people say the story's really good. So I don't know. And it's in my Steam catalog. I've had it there for a long time, so I just want to knock it out.
Good answers. Kenneth?
I'm sure part of this is proximity talking, but for retro game I'm looking forward to, Mass Effect 2.
You got to finish one first.
I do. Well, I don't have to, but I hope to. But everyone says 2 is even better than the first one. We just played the first one recently, had a great time with it. Got it sitting there in the queue as Legendary Edition. So, yeah, I want to just take that whole series further because it's pretty great. Games this year, I say I'm looking forward to playing this, but what it really means is I'm looking forward to watching people play it. Breath of the Wild, Dose, Part Due.
That's coming out this year for sure?
Yeah.
Does that have a release date this year? You're probably right. Tears
sure.
of the Kingdom, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's not even like that far from now, I believe.
Oh, May 12th.
Yeah.
Guys, that is really soon.
Right around the corner.
Huh, maybe I'll change my answer. I'm obviously going to play that when it comes out.
I wonder if they'll push it back. Just because I mean that's a big title.
That's a big title and that's super soon, yeah.
Interesting. Are you going to watch your wife play it? You're not going to play it?
Yeah.
You probably will.
That's exactly how it's going to
That's like her favorite game of all time, and she 100%ed that game, which is insane. I would never do that.
She got all the seeds?
No.
Yes.
She got she 98%ed it.
But still,
all the content, not all the Koroks.
But still, man. That's impressive.
I'll let you answer Mass Effect 2, although you know good and well that's not 15 years old or older. But
I forgot 2 bumps it past that threshold.
It does. I thought that too, but I didn't want to put you on blast.
Okay, no, I'll take it back and I'll think of something else.
Okay. You're really good at thinking of stuff on the spot. I'll go ahead and go while you're doing that for the next half hour. New game. There's 2, and it's Final Fantasy 16 and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Both of those are dumb answers, but
they're fine.
I'm a big Final Fantasy. But here's the thing: I'm a big Final Fantasy guy, and I'm a medium-sized Assassin's Creed guy. I used to be big. I'm skeptical about both of these, but that's kind of why I'm interested most in playing them this year, because my skepticism is Obviously, are they going to be good or not? Am I going to enjoy them or not? And which means if I'm excited about a game and I go into a game, that's fun. But if I'm skeptical, but it turns out amazing, then it's all the more. So
Exactly. And FF16 could be that. FF16 could be crazy. Could be. That would be cool if it was. I hope it's good.
The reason why I'm skeptical about 16 is because it seems to be getting further and further away from traditional Final Fantasy. The reason why I'm skeptical about AC Mirage is because they say they're coming back to traditional Assassin's Creed. Both of those, I don't know how to feel. So, and then the retro game that I'm looking forward most to playing is really kind of just a series that starts retro, at least. I want to go through most of the Yakuza series this year. That game, when we played it on the podcast, was a lot of fun. And Garlisle gifted me over Christmas, I think, the Yakuza Zero. So I'm going to be able to, with it. After I finish God of War 2018, before I play Ragnarok, I'm going to get to Yakuza.
That's a good plan. I bet all of them are really, really good.
Oh, I bet they are. All right, Kenny, do you got anything after all that?
I certainly don't.
Then why did you say that you would?
I tried to think, and then I realized I'm terrible at everything.
He's like, whatever the game of the week is. That's
Kenny, you are not terrible. You are amazing.
Did y'all plan that?
A couple months ago we had been cahooting. Like in our retro game of the week, Mace, the Dark Age.
Overview.
Mace, the Dark Age is a fighter that came out originally in the arcade by Atari Games, but then made its way to the N64 through Midway in 1997. Midway is the company that published Mortal Kombat, and that's probably what they were most known for around this time. But I did learn this week that Midway in 97 wasn't doing so hot. Like, I guess maybe some of their games weren't getting as much traction, and then they released this one. We did play the N64 version because that's what was submitted on the Retro Master List, but it was in the arcade originally. Now, I can't name many fighters on the N64, like none at all, and there's probably a good reason for that. Clay Fighter 63.5 is the only one that comes to mind. So that's what the N64 situation was in terms of fighting games.
Yeah, they're certainly not known as the console for having fighting games.
It's got to be the controller.
They exist.
Yeah, like you have fight sticks in the arcade, and they're perfect for fighters. And then you have the N64 controller, and I'm sure devs and gamers alike were like, no, I prefer something else.
I don't know why, though. I feel like this week playing a fighter with the N64 controller didn't feel bad. And having that joystick kind of control. Now, in this game, you're probably wanting to use your D-pad. It gives you a lot more control, and I did too. But like having a kind of joystick on your controller like you would in the arcade, I feel like they could have done something. And like in a different reality. Right? I feel like this could have been the console for fighters.
Personally, I feel like a thumb on a single joystick is like 90% less control than grabbing a joystick with your grip. Like it's for me, it feels too loose.
You're telling me that you can't claw
I can't claw grip the N64. I'm sure someone does. I'm sure someone plays like that.
Absolutely.
Not only is this a fighter, it's a 3D fighter, a la Tekken and Soul Calibur, and I mention Soul Calibur here because it's more in line with that game due to the fact that your fighters, your roster, are using weapons versus their knuckles, like in Street Fighter, and which was a unique thing. There weren't many fighters. Well, there probably were. Someone's going to correct me, but like you usually think of a brawler or just like a punch people kind of fighter. So the swords and the weapons are novel here. There's a story. There is a dark wizard named Asmodeus that wields the Mace of Tanis. This mace grants him ultimate power. It's Lord of the Rings at home, okay? I mean, there's nothing.
Don't compare it to Lothar.
No, I'm saying it is the worst possible ripoff of a Lord of the Rings kind of story. There's nothing here.
But
there's no story.
Even.
Stop it. There's no story. It's a fighting game, and it's just really edgy.
There's a straight up book at the beginning of the game that opens to tell you the story.
Oh yeah,
You can
I
read
wouldn't
it.
know.
Well, yeah, I
but
know.
yeah,
Yeah, story is not ever, I think, the focal point for fighters.
not usually. No.
Speaking of, the answer to this is no, but do either of you recall the last fighter we played on the podcast? The last true fighter?
Balls. Probably wrong.
I guess you are right.
That might be it.
That
That's
is
not
a
what I
fighter.
had. Why did
I'm
I
right.
not have that? You are right, and
The
I
one
was
before
wrong.
that was
Go ahead.
I don't know at all.
The one before that, and the one that I had written down because I'm an idiot, was Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors.
That's what I was
2.
gonna guess.
Oh,
wow.
that's been a minute.
That's been
It
a long
has
time.
been a minute. And so we don't get tons of them on here. They're not as prolific as every other genre necessarily.
Certainly not. Yeah.
And the reason why, Nolan, you have a good grasp of this is because you have recently done your tier list live on our YouTube channel.
I sure have.
also have. Is any?
And that's the state of things.
Okay. True.
Yes. Quick question, Kenny. Do you want to? I've got 2 questions for you. Do you want to do a tier
questions.
list of the
Are
games
you
we played
going to?
last year? And then the second question is, will you?
And
Okay.
Oh man, those aren't answers.
I think they're pretty clear.
Gameplay.
So we pick up a lot of these games, and I immediately just want to put them back down because fighters are sometimes, they're always high skill cap, but sometimes they also have a relatively high sort of skill floor. You know, the AI isn't like bad, but is decent, and if you're not at least sort of competent, you're just going to get trucked over. That wasn't the case here. We can talk about why.
Interesting.
And there may be a lot of reasons, but I was able to jump into this game and feel relatively successful and have at least a few rounds of sort of figuring out fighters, what they do, and then found even the like continue system that forces you to swap characters to somebody new where you can keep going, but you can't play the same person as a kind of cool way to be forced to get to know some other characters and try again. Again, what that says about the difficulty of the game and the AI and whatever, I think we can have that conversation more, but it was a little bit more welcoming for me than fighting games typically are, and I wanted to acknowledge and appreciate that.
I'm glad to hear that from you, Kenny.
I'm always sad when Kenny or I have the first play when it comes to fighting games, and I'm always
know.
glad when Nolan has the
It's like
first
never
play.
happened.
He did a great job.
Kenny and I are not fighting game. That's not our genre.
Yeah. Sure.
And if it is any of our genre, it's certainly Nolan's. Nolan has experience with it. Nolan has a fight stick at home. Nolan
I almost whipped it out to play.
to play this game.
Yeah, but I decided not to.
And so Nolan has like a natural, like
I do.
understanding
I do.
of these kinds of games, and he's able to like figure out combos on his own, which is not a thing that I ever do. I pulled up the manual this week that came with the home game, so you
Yep.
would do that,
Yep.
you know, back in 1997, and thankfully it has a lot of the basic moves and basic combos. And I realized after a while that they're pretty similar across characters, and they're pretty easy to pull off. None of them were like there are some fighting games that have things that you're just not going to remember. I've played some of the more recent Mortal Kombat games where each character is different. Each character has a string of inputs that I'm never going to remember. And I've even watched people that own the game play, and they're pausing to pull up you can have the moves in game that can show you.
Yeah, there's
and
like an overlay now.
that's
in most
not
games.
fun. And
Well,
so when it is
yeah.
more natural, it is easier to pick up.
Again, those were more accessible, which was nice. Saying there's not any moves here that are way too complex is a little disingenuous. There's a few like
Right, which I
11
never
move
did say.
combos that you've got to just like chain for like a paragraph worth of button inputs, you know, and it's
Paragraph.
stupid. No one's doing that. But the basic sort of combo moves that you can pick up are relatively doable, which is great.
Okay, yeah, so much there. One thing about fighting games that is at the core of them, and all good ones at least, is the roster and the variety in the roster. So, sure, Mortal Kombat, Tekken comes to mind. I mean, any of the big hitters, Street Fighter, you're going to have strengths and weaknesses, and that's the beauty of it, is learning your character, but then you must learn how that character fights against all the other ones. This game doesn't quite have that to the same degree, and I think that's a positive thing, actually, because of what y'all just said. The pickup and playability of this was surprising to me as well, and there's nothing wrong with having the move list up. It's expected with fighters. That's not playing the game wrong. That's not cheating. That's how you're supposed to do these games. You need to, I mean, you can figure them out on your own, sure, but that's not fun. You need to, like, know the inputs and learn them. But the fact that you're dealing with weapons here, I do think is an important factor, because it just kind of changes the dynamic of how you approach the game. You aren't needing to pull off complex combos. You're just simply needing to hit the enemy with any of your moves, and the spacing that comes along with having a weapon helps so much. And so I'm loving this. I really like that, because I can see a veteran of fighting games coming to this and being like, way too simple, like not having fun, all the characters kind of bleed together, don't love it.
Yeah, and Nolan, I get especially in moveset similarity, I get wishing there was more diversity. And I guess these characters aren't wildly different, but even just playing through a little bit of each, I really do feel like they were different enough to me that there was a little bit of that rock, paper, scissors going on. You'd have to adapt your play style based on the person you were playing against, because there's characters that hit hard but are slow, and there's characters that hit really soft, or a lot less hard, but they move fast, and they're going to come in and, like, unleash on you. And so you really had I thought, a pretty robust set of character archetypes and play styles, and had to adapt. Couldn't just do the same thing.
Yeah, there's some of that.
Let's talk more specifically about these characters. You've got 11 in the arcade. You've got 12 for the home console, along with a few unlockable characters through cheat codes and different things like that.
Interesting.
And then like a lot of fighting games, you've got different skins or colors that you can put by using like the left and right bumper, I think, on the character select screen. Who was your first pick?
Well, y'all know from the first play, mine was accidentally Lord Demos, because there is a timer to pick your character, and I didn't see it because my emulator wasn't showing me it. I was glad that was my first pick, because I went back to Lord Demos most of the week. I think he's on the cover of the game and just kind of the face of Mace. And I enjoy his look. He's awesome. And also, back to the booklet, we keep bringing it up, but Dustin sent it to me at the beginning of the week, and I had it up all week. And in the booklet, it shows you their moves, but it also has like a bio of them, and his is really sick. Like, I don't know. I just love his style. So that was my first pick.
By the way, Lord Demos looks like Lord Zed from Power Rangers. He was one of the villains in Power Rangers.
Yeah.
But like, they're very similar in like this red armor, kind of medieval armor. Kenny, who was your first pick?
First pick, and eventually longtime Bay. Do we still say that?
Okay, yeah, we say that.
Takeshi?
Takashi 6ix9ine. Yeah.
Takashi's not in here, but
no, I know who you're talking about.
That's his name. It's Takeshi Tsunami or something.
No one is talking about a rapper.
I know. I'm not talking about the rapper.
You're talking about the samurai.
It's the same. Yeah.
And I thought you were going to say a female character when you said Bay, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So you chose, which is interesting, because you chose he's a good guy. Like some of these, by the way, and I think a lot of fighters have kind of like traditional good guys and traditional bad guys, and you can pick out of these. I first started with Lord Demos because I feel like who wouldn't? Like, he does look the most like epic. He's not only on the cover art of the N64, he's on the arcade cabinet. Yeah, like look
at that sword. It's
Right.
crazy.
Everything that you would want in late 90s.
You could say, if you were real original, you could say he's the face of Mace. But
That's
you'd have
really
to come
good,
up with that.
Kenny.
No, I
that's
said
great, Kenny.
that.
Oh, what win?
Okay.
But I later put in a cheat code to unlock 2 new characters.
See, I didn't do this.
One was
Did you-
Gar Gunderson, a war mech, and the other was Ichiro, who's the evil samurai, who is Takeshi 6ix9ine's older brother. So that's who I
my.
actually played with the remainder of the week.
Moveset different?
So, I would. I don't know. I didn't
Probably.
play. I didn't
I
ever
think
play
so,
with
but I
Takeshi.
don't know either.
Yo, that's cool. I didn't do the cheat code thing. I miss cheat codes, by the way.
Cheat codes are great.
They're great. I mean,
You don't really have them as much anymore.
well, let me say my backup character, because you don't just have one main. You usually have a backup character when you're playing fighting games. I also picked Ragnar in the first play, and I picked all the characters, and honestly, my 2 favorite ones are the ones I played in the first play. Ragnar is more of he hits extremely hard, and I love his axe wonk. You can like bonk him on the head. One of my favorite moves in the whole game. And he's more of a grappler, and so his grab does insane damage, and I just find it really fun to grab people and do a lot of damage, and so I also play Ragnar.
I don't know if our listeners are catching on, but Ragnar, Viking, Lord Demos, like very medieval knight kind of situation. Even Takeshi, who is like from Japan, and like this is all rooted in the medieval world of our world, but with this magical component. And so you've got all these characters that are fighting with swords, or in Ragnar's situation, he's fighting with twin axes.
Yep.
Which is pretty sweet.
Yep.
And you are using your D-pad or your control stick to move. You're using your top and right C buttons to kick.
Yep.
Your bottom and left C buttons as strong attacks, and they're the same. So there's really just 3 buttons, but you can use either of those options. And then A and B are your quick attacks. And so and then L, R, and Z is evade. It moves in that 3D plane to try to evade.
Yes.
Which is a really cool mechanic and super important to learn and utilize well.
Oh yeah,
yes, because
it was
one of my favorite things that they do here that actually is kind of, it's actually really unique when you look at other fighters. They have boundaries in the stage that so in Soul Calibur, you can ring people out. It's called ringing out. When you get them to the edge of the stage and you like do a move that throws them off, you win the round. Like they got too close to the edge and game's over. In this one, they have a very similar system, except you don't automatically lose when you get rung out. You start taking dot damage, like lava. You're like standing in lava, for instance. And I really like that component of this game because it adds something fresh to what is sometimes a stale genre, or can be if you don't have cool characters and you don't have something else novel. So like, I think they actually did the 3D aspect justice here when it could have been terrible. And some people might think it's bad, but I like the ring out.
There were a few annoying moments where there'd be a pillar in the stage or something that your camera moved behind.
Didn't love that,
and you kind of couldn't see. A couple of the visuals were kind of just like, it got muddy and a little like sort of hard to follow what was going on. But overall, I agree. They did a pretty good job. The environments looked really different. You could take advantage of that 3D thing. And it was kind of fun to be able to jump up on ledges and jump off a ledge and interact with your space and be thinking about which characters would do better fighting from above or below. And the strategy of playing around the environments did add a little something just kind of nice.
Like Mortal Kombat of the time. By the way, they were to Mortal Kombat 4, I think, that came out this same year.
Ultimate.
It's got that kind of dark brutality thing, although I don't know. I was about to say maybe it's not as over the top. I guess it is just
I don't think.
Yeah, I guess it's not as over the top. I mean, you are knocking people's heads off and
bones, like you're
crazy
burning
things
people alive, and
but you're not
Kombat.
seeing the insides of their body and things.
I mean, you start going through those fatalities, and there's some pretty terrible ones.
And that's what I was getting
to. A few of
to.
the environments are pretty dark, but a lot of it, it doesn't feel as heavy.
So there are fatalities in this game in the manual called fatalities, and on the final hit of a match, your opponent goes catatonic.
Staggered, yeah.
And you have a few seconds to input the right move. And so as Lord Demos, remind me, I believe he like strikes them up with his sword, and then the body, I believe, lands on his sword and kind of just slides down it.
Yeah, it's like the slow like slide down the sword thing, and his is fairly easy to input too.
Yeah, a lot of these fatalities are fairly easy to input. They only have one each, so it's not like you have a fatality, a babality, and a whatever else they
brutality.
did with Mortal Kombat eventually.
Yeah, there are so many.
You just have one, but it for most of the characters that I played, after toying with it just a little bit, I was able to get it pretty consistently.
I will say the fact that fatality is in this is kind of eye roll. Like, they all have just one, and it does feel like, okay, they were just like Mortal Kombat kind of put that out there, and they're just tagging on to it because it was a popular thing.
It was table stakes for these edgy 90s games. Like, if you're going to do that kind of game, it's expected that you give some kind of, like, you know, 7th grade boy payoff, and they did. And so, I don't know. It's not surprising. And some of them were actually pretty cool.
At the end of each battle, you're given a traditional score page, and the head of the opponent you just fought falls down onto a pike at the bottom of the stage, and it kind of lines up. My experience was that it's kind of short. Like, you're not going through 10, 12 different enemies, but or even the full catalog, but you're only fighting 6 or 7 enemies to finish your character's story. And it's 2-round fights, like most of these games are. You're fighting 6 or 7 characters, sometimes even yourself, which I feel like is kind of dumb. And then you fight the Executioner, and then you fight Asmodeus at the end, if you get that far, and then you beat the game, I guess, with that character.
Right.
Feels relatively short.
Yes, I agree. And I also think the difficulty curve that is always present in the like single player progression of a game like Mortal Kombat, I'm just going to use that as an example. Mortal Kombat is actually pretty challenging when you do single player. Like, towards the end of that tournament, you're like, and you get to like Motaro and stuff, you're like, I'm going to die. Like, there's no way. I didn't feel that fear here. Like, I did quite well. They do try to do the difficulty curve thing where, like, the last 3 fights, they've got combos for sure. They're dodging more, but the AI didn't feel like impossible like some fighting games. And I'm not saying it should, but I'm with you, Dustin. It's a quick single player experience, and that's the other thing about fighters. Like, to me, first and foremost, a fighter is a multiplayer experience. I'm playing against you. It is not a single player experience. This game, though, feels like it's designed first for single player.
Which is interesting because it first came out for the arcade, which was probably certainly a multiplayer kind of experience.
But it still feels that way to me. Like, there's just, I think I'm missing some of the depth of other
just because
fighters.
they put story in there, or why? Like, the whole time it's flashing, trying to get you to get that second player to press start. Like, it wants you to pick up the controller and jump in.
I think that's brought over from the arcade, and I can't speak to this because I didn't play against a human, but it just felt like one of those single player fighting experiences in a good way, but like, not the story. It's just the quickness of it and the like pick up and playability of it. There's not as much depth as Tekken, which takes years to master and to unlock, and you return to it time and time again, and you get better by playing against people. But you kind of get a mastery of your character with a few play sessions. Not mastery, that's a strong word, but like you feel powerful, I think.
I would be down for a single player fighter heavy story based game like that, like you're kind of describing, but I feel like if they're going for that here, they should have given a few more story elements in between. You don't get any, you get on our emulator, we didn't get anything, but you get little like character, like a little saying from each, but it's not really rooted in the narrative that's going on. Right. And so you don't know why they're fighting. I feel like in some of the Mortal Kombat games, like, you know why you're about to fight this next guy, and like there's something there. And then to have it so short where you're only fighting 6 or so and going on, I feel like if it was if they were really going, hey, make this a first player at home kind of experience first and foremost, Could have made it longer, could have made it a little bit more story centric, could have given us a few more story beats, because it is, it is built out where you're working your way up to Asmodeus, getting the mace for good or evil. And so like it is there, but I feel like it's not there enough for that to be satisfying.
You're right. I might be wrong. The multiplayer might be fantastic and like the kind of first choice. So I wish I could have done that.
I think because of that, it may not have legs for like tons of replayability, but I think it adds to its accessibility too. This is a pick it up and play for a little bit and have fun kind of game. It's got that arcade vibe of like, I want to sit down and just entertain myself and it only take a little while and enjoy it. And so I noticed the same thing, but I'm not as critical of it. If there'd been a bigger character roster or more different endings for different characters or something to like give you that replayability reason, I think it could have made up for it. So yeah, it may be a little short, but again, I almost felt that was welcoming for me because it was just casual. It's one of those I could just pick it up and play for a little while anytime I wanted to all week.
I feel like even one thing they could have done, I don't know if this is a fix, but if at the end when you beat Asmodeus, if you just had an option with any character you're playing to take the mace or to destroy it, and then they had a story, so like just two endings for each character. One is you destroyed the mace, and so that's a good ending.
Yeah.
Or you take the mace and you're corrupted by its power.
Because then that's 2 playthroughs per character, so there is replayability with that. You're right. That's a good idea.
Multiple endings. It's the answer. Was it just me, or did the AI feel a little bit rubber bandy?
I'm used to it.
It may have just been me.
I'm used to it. It might be. Other games are worse. I think Street Fighter is worse in that regard, actually, and that's probably a hot take.
It may have been me trying to like adjust to a fight and then doing different things as I got through it. But I found in a lot of these it was sort of snowbally. If you got ahead in the fight, it was just over.
Yeah.
But then I also found that like it would get harder and harder and harder, but then I'd get a new character. And then it's almost like it reset the AI difficulty, and I'd have like a really easy time beating somebody that I just had a really hard time beating all of a sudden. And so I don't know if some of that actually was going on or if I just had some perception issues, but the AI as a whole I felt like wasn't great, and they could have smoothed out however they handle that AI difficulty. There's certainly a long-term curve there that's good. It needs to get harder, and you may be right, Nolan, it may end up needing ultimately to be even a little bit harder overall, but like for me, it not being impossible felt nice. So I don't know. It's not going to be for everybody the way they handled it.
Rubber banding, I did not feel. Snowballing, I did feel. I felt like, and it goes back to that AI conversation of like, I just think that they could have tweaked it a lot more, because if you're ahead, you're ahead. I mean, like you can really snowball in it, but also the reverse is true. Like there were times where I was just locked down because if you fall down, the animation to get back up takes forever, and so they can really do a lot of damage on you before you can ever respond to that.
There are other times that if you're ahead, the executioner just performed his fatality on you.
The head is what he's talking about. So it's really good.
Aged.
I think, Kenny, you may have said this, or someone said that adding more characters could have been interesting. Well, I think they did have more characters when they developed this game. I read that they had 30 originally.
They came up with like a list of 30 different characters, and then they narrowed it down.
They narrowed it down, but the way they narrowed it down was an audience of teenage boys like chose their favorites, and that's how they narrowed it down. Like actually, that's what they did.
Because we know who these games are written for. Like we say it jokingly, but it's not a joke. This whole Edgy's 90 thing was a thing.
Of course.
And they knew their audience, and they knew who was going to, pester mom enough to pay for it.
And it worked.
Or not tell her the rating,
Wait, was this R? This was an M rating, right? An M rating?
I'm sure.
It's got to be.
It is mature.
I think with fighting games, you need some iconic characters.
Yes.
With movesets, sure, but like characterizations and look. And I think you do get that with Lord Demos, but I don't really get that with most of the other characters here. When I think of like iconic fighting characters, obviously like Scorpion comes to mind.
Baraka.
Yeah. And even Ryu and Ken, even though they're kind of basic, there's something about Guile. I mean, Guile has like such an
Flat top,
iconic
yeah,
look.
yeah.
You got King was that in Tekken? I think
Yeah,
King the
of course.
Jaguar. Like there's some of these iconic characters that make it memorable. And as I said here, Lord Demos is one of those. But I feel like for me, every other one in the cast is forgettable.
Yes, I think Executioner stands out and has potential too, but his name's the Executioner, and it's like that's not exciting. And yeah, I agree with you. Even though I loved Ragnar, it's just some shirtless dude. Just Viking. Lord Demos is the only standout. Really cool character. Love him. But you're very correct. And that's probably why, I mean, actually, I don't know if this has sequels, but it didn't have legs enough to make it into modern terms where we're talking about fighting games. We throw out Mace the Dark Age, right? And it's got to be because of the character list, at least in part to me. I totally agree with you. Staying power is linked fully to the roster and the player's connection to their character. Yeah. And I barely felt it with Lord Demos, and that's it.
I think one thing you won't agree with me on is this. I think on one hand, the graphics are good. It's smooth edges, good backgrounds, chunky sprites. I think the sprite work was good. But I think on the other hand, the graphics are not good. I felt like things were blurry, and especially like face detail, especially when they're on the pikes or on the bottom of the screen. I don't know. I felt like it was weird. Some of each.
For Nintendo 64, I thought this was an amazing looking game. You know, you get some real bad polygon situations. You get some offenders that are worse than this. Certainly, it's not the nicest looking game you're ever going to see, but I don't know. I felt like for what it was on and when it came out, I was pretty pleased with the look and the feel of it. Again, a few times you'd get like functional issues with, you know, pulls getting in my vision really bugged me every time that happened. Some of those other things that are graphical.
Let me say this about that, because I think part of me thought that might have been an emulation thing, that because other polls that you do get in front of, you've got a transparency to them, and I feel like that might not have been procking on the emulator. I don't know, but that is something to take into consideration.
It may be. I'm not sure either. I do know when the game came out, and you can still see it today, some people did give it an issue.
Got you.
A little bit of flack for some frame rate kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, and so that's a reality. That's not like the visual itself, but the performance of those visuals.
That's a good
something
point.
to be aware of. It never felt game breaking to me, but people that are picky about that stuff may really hate it.
Okay, I do disagree with you, Dustin. I'm with Kenny. I think it looks good. For the most part, with the frame rate thing is problematic.
That's bad.
In a fighting game, frames are everything. The frame data is what people call it when they're like breaking down what move is safe to throw out, meaning you can throw out this move because it has fewer frames than your block. So like you can throw this out and know that you're not going to be punished for it. That's not in this game. I mean, frame data is, you might as well throw it away. But again, the game is not trying to be Tekken. I really don't think it is. I don't even think it's trying to be Soul Calibur. Maybe, but the frame rate was mostly a problem for me on character select. Again, might be emulation, but like when you changed characters, there's flames all over the screen. So yeah, they had issues, but like it froze for like a good full second and then
30 minutes.
It was bad.
It was bad in character select, but not just then. It made the gameplay a lot slower, and you know that is more realistic. If we're talking about like medieval fighting, it's gonna be a slower thing, but that's not fun for like a fighter. You want to be moving fast. You want to be jumping over each other with a flip, the frame rate here was just absurd, causing everything to feel like it was in slow motion.
Yeah, but on the visual front though, alone, just looking at it, this port's solid.
It's a solid port,
especially for the N64. Yeah. Like it looked, the animations were good even at times. Like I like the look of the game, and I was shocked by that because I know N64 can be really rough in that regard. So it looks good.
What about the music? It was like what was it, like grunge, maybe a little bit of light, like metal stuff. I don't know.
It's trying to fit the vibe of the characters and everything.
Right. And
Yeah.
I feel like it fits, but nothing was stand out to me.
No, I'm the same way. For me it worked. I actually thought some of the sounds and sound effects were actually kind of fun. There was some ridiculous character things. You had your Xena style character, whatever her name was, that
Screaming.
that did the little like scream
yeah.
trail thing, warrior princess style. That was fun. Like there were moments of things that were fun, and even the soundtrack. Again, yes, I'm not humming it later. It wasn't excellent, but it worked. I did 100% though hear the quality of the sound not be what I would like it to be. I don't know if that's time,
peaking,
but
yeah.
I really think those old carts, you just don't get the space for assets that you do on a disc. And so I think and I'm not enough of a sound person to know, but like the equivalent of their bit rate, the quality of the sounds, not the sounds that they chose, was kind of subpar to me. It felt real either compressed or just sort of like, I don't even know how to
It was
explain
muffled.
but it wasn't great. Yeah.
This is a big knock for me against the game because when I play a fighter, I actually look for catchy tracks on stages and like I want to return to them later. I want to be able to listen to them later. And so many of these games had fantastic music. Street Fighters stand out. But while this one fit, I was constantly searching for something more. I think they could have done more to make it more like unique or just like making it their own thing. These felt like filler tracks that again fit the whole grungy medieval theme, but I didn't take anything away from it, and that's a problem for me for fighters because it helps me get in the zone. Like I wanna jam out to Guile's theme, right? And I didn't get to do that.
Yeah. We mentioned it during the gameplay section some, but I always think that these games in 2023 now we have to bring up that it's difficult to play multiplayer today, and that knocks off an entire big part of the experience here because although we had a discussion on you can play this for a single player, and you can, but a lot of fighting games are meant to be played multiplayer against opponents. This started in the arcade where a lot of that was happening. It even came to the home console where I'm sure a lot of that was happening. But when you can really only do that couch co-op today, that's not happening near as much, especially for grown men in different parts of the world.
For the N64 version, yes, there are online, actually some stable online fighter services where you can play arcade against each other, and I'm sure it probably functions.
You think many people are playing Mace against each other today?
No, but I think the option's there if we did want to hop on. I think we could. Fightcade, I think is what it's called, if you're interested in listening. But for the N64 version, it's couch co-op, and you better have two N64 controllers that work, that aren't the joystick's not loose as all, like you. So yes, I agree. But again, the single player experience here, I think for me was at least the highlight. Maybe not for everybody, but like you can take away from this fighter and not play multiplayer and still get something.
I wouldn't want us to play online just because I'm worried about what I'd do to Nolan's ego.
Yikes.
Kenny, there's 0% chance that you would do anything to anyone's ego when it comes to
everybody was
games.
like, that's cap.
I get spam so hard, you can't even deal.
The arcade cabinet, the upright arcade cabinet, is fairly rare to find today. Okay. There weren't tons of them that released, although it's not the rarest arcade console we've come across. I saw one on eBay this week selling for $1,500 in relatively good condition.
I feel like
not
that's
that bad.
Reasonable for a rare arcade cabinet.
And that's the full cabinet. You can find some of the chipsets, or is that what they're called?
The boards
for less than that. The boards for less than that.
Yep.
If you do want a cartridge for your N64 at home, it's only $16 used. But if you do want it new, it is $223.
Yo, why? What?
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Our fighting man is going to take first player here and give us his final thoughts on Mace: The Dark Age.
Okay. I like this game. N64 Fighter sounded super bad on paper. Going into it, everyone in the community was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Never heard of this. And I hadn't heard of it. But, I mean, you see it on my face in the first play. There was something there for me. Something gripped me. It reminded me of Soul Calibur, but it didn't feel like a ripoff, which I think is important because I expected it to be. And it could have been. But, and you don't have the same character, like you don't have those standout characters. The identity of the game is kind of missing in that regard. And yet, I played this game a lot more than I thought I would this week and enjoyed all of it. I want to play against a person. I think there is something there that I'm missing. But the single player experience is quite good. It's short. Kenny can pick it up and play it, and I think that's a good thing. Not every fighter has to be Tekken, where you have to sell your soul and the rest of your life to get good at it. I like that. I like that exists. But so I'm glad Mace exists too. So this easily gets NGP from me, I'm going to say. You should play it.
Wow. Easily.
Yeah, easily.
Interesting. I am going to go next. Coming into a fighting game on the Nintendo 64 that I had never heard of before, I had very low expectations, and I thought it was going to be abysmal. It was not. It was not abysmal nor abhorrent, but I do think the largest sin here is that it was just forgettable. The cast of characters and the unrefined AI. I feel like there's one or two characters that can kind of just trump the other characters. Lord Demos with his reach and sword being one of them, where you can kind of just get at least the first 3 or 4 characters locked in just a faraway strike and take them out eventually. You don't have to do that, but I'm just saying that is part of the reason why I think that the game is a little bit... if they would have flushed some of these impurities out and really improved them in the development process, maybe switched out a few of the characters so it's a little bit more memorable, tweaked some of the AI and the battling, I think they would have had something really good going for them here. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's a forgettable game, and so I do not give it my vote for New Game Plus status, which means
interesting.
Kenny has the floor.
Power.
Okay.
He's got the Mace of Windu in his hand.
I've got Mace Windu in my hand. Here's the thing. I don't think anyone really needs to go out of their way to play old fighters.
Hey.
Just like as a genre, I think it's one that doesn't age as well as other things. Like if you're into fighters and that's what you want, I feel like just go play modern day offering of whatever's there. Maybe that's because it's not my genre and I don't have the nostalgia, but that's just sort of a fundamental truth that I want to throw out there first. However, if you are willing to go back and play an older fighter, it might as well be this one. Like, if you pick it up, you're probably going to have a little bit of fun. You may set it down again relatively quickly, but then you're going to want to come back and play it a little bit more because there is something fun about this game, even if it is fairly simple, even if the characters are a little forgettable in their like character, or kind of tropey. It's enjoyable when you're playing it, and so I think this one is a little bit of a sleeper. I didn't expect to play a fighter on the N64 and like it, and I kind of did. So it's certainly not the best game we've ever played. This is not a must play, but I'm going to go ahead and give it NGP status.
We're going to get in so much trouble for this.
I mean, ultimately, I'm glad we're moving on to something else, but I had fun with this game, and I think some people will
honest.
as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I'm glad it exists.
Give it a shot
On the N64. I love it.
That means Mace the Dark Age is New Game Plus certified,
They're gonna
which is
hate us.
interesting. I don't know what this means for us. It means a couple things. It means, one, all games that we played so far this year have gotten New Game Plus certification.
Mass Effect, followed by Mace the Dark
2023, let's go.
This is my
and
year.
then Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney was kind of right at
Yeah,
the switch
yeah.
of the year. And then it secondly means that I think we're going to have people in our community that think we're insane, but that's nothing new.
That's nothing. They hate me.
We've got opinions, and that's why we have opinions.
Our YouTube poll this week is not a surprise to anyone. 9% said yes, it's worth playing today. 9% said no, but 82% have never played because no one's heard of this game.
Yep, that's probably fair.
And then I just love it. Now, honestly, we should change the name of our podcast to probably like retro video game book club, because that's what we are. We're just a group of people that play old video games together now and talk about it.
Yeah.
And we had so many in our community play along, write in, send in their thoughts. Here's a few of them. Garlisle said, the bar for early 3D fighters is low. Awfully low. We might remember games like Tekken and Soul Edge and have high standards for them, but the fact that Mace has a practice mode, attack cancels, and actual endings for its characters somehow puts it above most of the refuse of the era. Does that mean it's good? Nah. The cast and theming are forgettably pizza cutter, all edge and no point. The controls are stiff, and the AI is absolutely unfair, even on the easiest settings. The stage terrains are often more aggravating or laggy than fun. It's not bad enough to be an urban legend, has too little content to be interesting casually, and isn't good enough to have earned itself a legacy. Unless you specifically love discovering forgotten fighting games, it's fine staying lost to time.
I think a lot of people are going to have that exact opinion, but
Yeah.
I agree with the legacy comment. It doesn't have it, and you need it to survive through the sea of fighters at the time.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that's all fair as well.
Like, my only argument for people is going to be if they think it's a trash game or if they think it's like the best fighting game, because
Yeah.
it's not. It's somewhere in the middle in an era where games like this were coming out, and that's why no one knows about it.
Under
you
the
know?
radar, yeah.
TH Spurs fans said the late 90s for fighting games had many gems and plethora of duds. Mace the Dark Age is one of those duds. I do recall playing it in the arcades, and it wasn't very popular at my local arcade. The game was gone and replaced. Mostly didn't even realize it was gone, to be honest. So when I see Mace the Dark Age with its are overly generic and lackluster characters, bland stages, dull stage music, and very slow and cumbersome fighting engine, I find myself getting bored despite knowing the special moves, combos, and fatalities. If you want a good weapons-based fighting game from this era, go play Soul Blade or Bushido Blade. So no, this game doesn't get NGP from me, and I love the fighting game genre.
Okay. So that's a fighter gamer giving their thoughts on it, landing on the other side than I did.
You and a lot of other people mentioned the Soul games. I don't know the difference. Soul Calibur, Soul Blade, Soul Edge, whatever. Very similar.
Very similar, but Soul Calibur is like amazing. Soul Calibur
Like a
2
really good
is
technical-
like one of the better fighters ever.
Got you. Well, I mean, speaking of, Cecil said, trying to make Soul Calibur, or rather Soul Edge, by way of Mortal Kombat is not necessarily a bad idea. And there's nothing Mace does that stands out as particularly wrong. It's a solid C-grade fighting game with little imagination. If anything really holds it back, apart from the overly 90s idea of edgy dark fantasy, it's the arcade-style AI designed to sink time and quarters into, and the decision to go on N64, which was not an ideal console for fighters. Is Mace a bad game? Certainly not. Is it NGP quality? Also not, but I think there's value in looking back on other games, other items on the shelf. This was probably someone's favorite arcade game as a kid, and I certainly have good memories of stumbling across it in an arcade. Not everything can be timeless classics, so remembering what else was there is a good exercise in archiving.
I'm glad it found its home on the N64, because a lot of fighter ports at the time were going to PlayStation 1, and made sense to do so, but like... I'm glad they did N64. I know it's not for everybody, but it makes the catalog a little more interesting to me now that I've played it.
And then finally, Neuramon said, I have a confession to make. I was the one that added Mace the Dark Age to the Retro Master list.
Okay.
But to be honest, besides the medieval setup and some cool looking characters, the game hasn't much to offer in comparison to other fighting games. So, why did I add this game? You may wonder.
Yes.
It is all about nostalgic feelings for me. This is one of those games that I played countless hours together with my best friend during school time. Even though the
Oh,
single-player mode of the game gets boring quickly, the two-player mode is good for a lot of fun, even today. Sadly, I lost
go.
contact to my school friend about 15 years ago. But while revisiting the game this week, I decided to look him up on the internet and send him an email. He quickly responded to my message, and we plan to meet next month in real life for a retro gaming session.
My goodness.
I
That kept
doubt
getting
that-
better and better.
I doubt that the game of the week will get NGP from you guys. It won't get an NGP from me either. But after all, even bad games like this can reconnect people all around the world.
We made
I
that
don't even
person's
care.
day.
If I hadn't given it NGP,
Yeah.
I would have changed my vote just for that story.
No, but how cool that we did, though. They're going to be listening to this
like-
and being like, oh my God.
Right. Now Nuramon, and he's going to be able to tell his friend, like, this podcast just gave it their vote for,
Yeah.
whatever.
I
like,
love it. That's good.
Hey,
Thanks for
it's
writing
worth
in.
it. It's worth
So
it.
fun.
All right, those are your thoughts. Thank you for sending in your thoughts on the retro game of the week. Continue to do that each and every week. Won't be able to get to all of them, but they're all cataloged there in our commentary section in Discord. You can read each other's thoughts, and we definitely read them each week and want to include your thoughts as a part of our show next week. But we're putting aside Mace the Dark Age for now, and we are going to randomly select. Before we do, we've got something fun to announce. We've never done this in the life of the show, but we have been talking for a while now that we are. It's fun sometimes to go back and look at where you began, but where we began was not good. And as a podcast, and we have decided to revisit and re-record episodes for at least our first 3 episodes of the New Game Plus podcast. We might do a few more, but we're going to at least revisit and re-record 3.
That's Earthworm Jim.
Okay, can you do this?
No. That
Okay.
is. Wait, can I? Is that Mega Man? No, that's Half-Life 1.
Correct?
And Mega Man 2?
No.
Ah.
Jurassic Park?
No.
that was
No.
that was the
Oh,
first 10,
Dark,
not
Perfect
that early.
Dark.
Perfect Dark. Those are the first 3.
Dude, we got some good ones to play.
Which
I don't
I
want to play
think
Earthworm
that's
Jim.
There's
good
some
for-
really good ones.
Those are good for us to revisit for a lot of reasons. Half-Life is just, that's going to be a good, fun classic to come
Yes.
back to. Perfect Dark, because we did not give it our vote, but also we didn't know what we were talking about.
But
and
I still might
Earthworm
not.
Jim, which we've had somewhat of a revisit through a special episode, but it will
Yeah.
be good to come back to as
Yeah.
well. So is what we're going to do is over the coming months, we're going to take one of our weekly episodes and we're going to not randomize, but pick that game. So Earthworm Jim will be our first one in a couple weeks. We're going to be playing Earthworm Jim again for a week. We'll do a first play, and then we'll record an episode, and that week's episode will be,
Redux.
episode 1 revisited or Redux or whatever.
Yeah.
Earthworm Jim. So
I'm super
Just
excited about this.
wanted to give you an update on that before we get around to doing it, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun concept. It'll be fun to see how much we've grown as a podcast, to see how our opinions may have changed or not, to see how our skills at games may have changed. It's just going to be a really
not.
fun kind of, or gotten worse in some of our cases. So I'm a little scared. Let us know if it's fun. We may do more than 3 episodes worth. So
Sure.
would love to get some feedback once those go out. But if you want to be getting ahead, go start revisiting those games now on your own, because they're coming up soon. Ish.
But for now, we are going to be randomizing out of our Retro Master list. There's a lot of games there, mostly bad and forgettable. Randomizing now. We are going to be playing a game that came out in 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Great start.
All right. Yeah.
But it's a racing game
Woo! Never mind.
Okay.
that was sued by Pixar for allegedly copying the design and concept from their short film Red's Dream.
I'm back on board. I like a little.
Oh,
drama. I like
you
a little
like the
legal
drama?
action.
Yeah, he wants to go back and slam the table again
Yeah.
and bow.
Yeah.
This game was ranked by Nintendo Power as the 8th best SNES game of 1994.
Whoa. Okay. I might know which one of these it could be.
Interesting.
It is a game that is called Uniracers.
Oh, I've
Where-
never heard of that.
You are racing around as a riderless unicycle on a 2D track.
You're kidding me.
What?
I was with you. Everything was normal until the last like 5 words. What?
Yeah.
You could have said people running around in unitards, and I would have felt like that was less
literally
weird than what you said.
A riderless unicycle racing game.
You are a unicycle racing against other unicycles.
Some person in this world said,
Uh-huh.
"We need a game like for
We
this."
need a game like this, and then brought a team together to create
money.
it, and then got sued by Pixar.
Yeah, what?
The
Also,
sued by
why didn't
Pixar
you
thing
wait-
is interesting.
Why didn't you wait until the Wii came out? Because if you're gonna do a unicycle game, you want to force the player to do balance, like physically. That's
For
the
some
only
reason,
appeal.
When you started saying that, I thought you were gonna say sitting on that stick.
I did too. I didn't know. Okay,
I
that
didn't know where
too.
he's
That could be a
going.
way to control it.
I'm
A strap on.
Oh!
Okay, not.
Oh!
Which voice do you wear? Like a Velcro band.
This
Okay.
is getting
We'll
out
stop.
of hand.
We'll stop.
So use your controllers responsibly this week./Find a copy of Uniracers and play it along with us.
Join us in Discord. Discord.gg/newgameplus if you dare.
If you double dog dare, join us on patreon.com and support the show as well. If you support us at a high enough level, we'll let you do whatever you want with your Wii Remote. Producers that support our show: Adam, Alex, and Marlene, Antonin, Ben, Brock, Ellis, Francesca, Gimbin, J. Robert, Jared, Joey, Jordan, Justin, Clint, Nicknack, Corey, Lawai, Mal, Maxima, Mr. Lattes, Pipari, Sajin, Shauna, Subsonic Demon, Tazelhoft, Thomas, Unbedavable, William, and Zion. A special thanks to our director level supporters who truly go above and beyond both. Pro Jim, Garlisle, George, and Super Hypered. We want to say welcome to some new patrons
Ooh.
who are supporting us for the first time this week, including Kyle, Junus, and Ekram.
Junus.
Thanks so much for your support. And we got that big news. New director.
You're
Now that
lying.
No, new director this week, now that there are some director spots available.
Hey.
Again, for folks to jump on. And so D.H. Bowser has joined us this week
A familiar
as
friend.
a director-level supporter. Been a good part of the community for a long time. Can't wait to have an episode with him.
We did lose him as a producer, though, so if anyone wants to hop in and fill his spot as a producer,
We have
that's
producer
fine.
spots too. Unlimited.
Listen, you can follow us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Uniracers. Until then, I'm still Lord Demos.
I'm still Takeshi Tsunami.
I'm Yoshimitsu.
And this has been New Game Plus.